Black Magic Woman podcast acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we have recorded this episode on. We also acknowledge traditional owners of the land where you, the listener or viewer, are tuning in from. We would like to pay our respects to our elders past and present and acknowledge that this always was Aboriginal land and always will be Aboriginal land.
I think with this program, we've been pretty lucky. It doesn't financially discriminate, so you can apply from anywhere and you don't have to pay a single cent.
Wow.
No airfares, no food, accommodation, it's pretty special.
Welcome to the Black Magic Woman podcast with Mundanara Bales.
Welcome to another episode of the Black Magic Woman podcast. This is an episode where we are yarning about all things culture is life. In particular, the Fullaship program. I'm not going to give too much away, actually. I'm going to get the guests on this show to actually talk about the Fullaship program. I'm here on beautiful Yankunytjatjara land, blessed to, be here at the iHeart studio. So big shout out to iHeart, but also a big shout out to Thara Brown, a titter who reached out to me on Instagram and was like, hey sis, can we have a yarn about an opportunity which has now brought us to this very moment in time. So the Fullaship program, I know my niece Lala is now one of the alumni, so I want to give a big shout out to Lala as well, who had nothing but positives and literally raving reviews about this program. And it's probably a program that you won't hear much about in terms of opportunities for young mob to come together to develop themselves. But based on culture, everything is centred around culture, and that's the work that Culture is Life do. We'll talk more about that in a moment. I'm going to hand over to our guest today. You've got the deadly sister Bri. Sis, do you want to share with our listeners and viewers, your name, your mob, and a little bit about where you grew up? And then we'll go over to you, Brother Jeremy.
Yep, so my name is Bri Yarran. I'm a Noongar woman from Perth. So my dad's side of the family is from northern York, so that's Ballardong country. And then my mum's side of the family are Whadjuk from Perth and also Wagyl Kaip from Kaurna, but I was born and raised in Perth my whole life.
Too deadly. Over to you.
Yeah, my name's Jeremy. I'm a proud Yankunytjatjara and Pidgina man. So yeah, WA way, I've got mob there, and on the APY Lands I've mobbed there. I've been lucky enough to do some family trips there, and right now I'm living in Adelaide on Kaurna Country.
Too deadly. So, Jeremy, I guess, living on Kaurna Country, you're here now in Wangkangurru, a.k.a. Brisbane, the land of the Yagara and Turrbal peoples. How did you get involved in terms of with Culture is Life? When did you first see it? Do you still remember the email you got, or you saw it on social media?
Yeah, so it was a bit of a funny one how I sort of found out about the Fullaship program. I was in a LinkedIn group, the Association of First Nations in International Development. And so, yeah, someone there put up the Culture is Life Fullaship applications, and it was sort of the deadline was coming up, and I thought I was umming and ahhing about it. I don't know if I'll do it because I'm more of an introvert. I'm like, I don't know if I can do programs leadership programs like this, but I thought, why not? So I applied fairly last minute. And yeah, in terms of the application process, it was pretty smooth. There was a few questions in terms of values, why you want to do it, what's your project. So I did that, and yeah, got an email a few weeks later. Do you want to do an interview? So did an interview, and that went all right. Yeah, deadly mob there at Culture is Life. They were pretty supportive during the interview, and which was nice. So yeah, and then got the phone call saying you can do it. So
you got accepted into the program.
Pretty blessed. So yeah.
And there are hundreds of applications, and 10 to 15, people are going to get that call. In terms of developing yourself, in terms of leadership qualities. Is that part of the program?
Absolutely. That's one of the pillars of the program. So, yeah, leadership is a huge, huge part of it. So, I guess we learn about leadership in the professional development sessions that we have throughout the year. We have had Uncle Kenny Bedford, who was on the Reconciliation Australia board. So, he's talked to us about leadership in that aspect. So, yeah, every couple of months we have sort of professional development where a leader in the community comes and talks to us about leadership.
Love. Hey, Bala Kenny. I just got to say big shout out to Bala. I actually met him at Monash Business School.
Oh, true.
Doing my Masters of Indigenous Business Leadership with Bala Kenny. So big shout out to Bala, and also come and stay at my Airbnb. on the sunny coast with his son.
No way.
So there's a connection there already. You got to meet him through this program. And like you said, he's done a lot of things in community. And he's not an old fella. He's quite young. What about for you, sis, in terms of what drew you to wanting to be part of this program? What led you? What inspired you?
So I knew that 2024 was going to be a transitional year for me. I had just graduated law school the previous year, so 2023. And, during that time, I knew I was really going to probably struggle with going into full-time work. It's very different to studying full-time, and the work that I was going into, I knew was going to be pretty hard on my mental health. So I wanted to make sure I was equipped to be the best lawyer and best person that I can, not only for the clients, but also for the organisation that I work for, the Aboriginal Legal Service of Western Australia.
Too deadly. So you're a lawyer.
I am.
Okay. I love this because for a lot of our mob that are listening, you might be studying, you might be working, or you might be still trying to find your path. So you kind of saw this as an opportunity to help kind of grow into being a lawyer, but also thinking about your own mental health. At Culture is Life through the Fullaship program, I heard you have connected and got this deadly partnership with Dr. Greg Phillips and his company Abstarr. I've heard about the amazing work that they do because I know Greg, and Greg has been on this podcast as well, so big shout out. But tell me about the wraparound support. How do like the Abstarr and that kind of wraparound support work?
Yeah, so we get free Abstarr counselling sessions, and I've really utilised that, particularly throughout when I've started my full-time work at the ALS. It's really hard, especially when you come into work and you get a phone call that there's been a death in custody, for instance, or there's a case that's gone really, really poorly, or you have an inquest coming up, something really bad's happened, and you just need someone to talk to outside of your family and your friends. And it's really nice to have someone from Abstarr that you can talk with. Even little things such as talking to them about how I was speaking with a client in prison, and the things that they tell me is quite traumatizing, and it takes an impact on you if you don't get it out. So, and I really didn't want to take the whole brunt and load of hearing all this traumatic experience and then, slowly beating down on myself. I really wanted to have that protective layer to make sure that I could be the best lawyer I could.
And a lot of these psychologists at Abstarr are actually First Nations as well.
Yeah.
Which is pretty deadly. I know that Abstarr is like the... because I've worked in government before, and you've got the EAP program, right? Employee Assistance Program. But this is like a black employee assistance program that's now, supporting Culture is Life. And I'm pretty sure that there's not a lot of money out there in terms of being able to put together a program like this where you're bringing 10 to 15 people together and then going to different countries. So I heard that you've been to Gimoy and you've also come here to Wangkangurru, which is pretty far from where you're from, sis, right? You're from WA, you're on the West Coast, and you've had an opportunity. Is this your first time travelling over to the East Coast?
I've been to the East Coast a few times, but probably first proper time in Brisbane.
Yeah, and you've been able to really immerse yourself here in the local community.
Definitely, yes.
Too deadly. So, brother, I'm going to ask you a little bit of a question in terms of, with this program, was there anything like that we had to pay?
I think with this program, we've been pretty lucky. It doesn't financially discriminate, so you can apply from anywhere and you don't have to pay a single cent.
Wow.
No airfares, no food, accommodation. It's pretty special. So, yeah, I'd encourage anyone, even if you think you've got no money, well, you come here and do it. Money isn't a barrier.
Is a barrier. Because for a lot of our mob, these opportunities cost money.
That's right.
That's just the reality, right, of signing up or enrolling into like a leadership program or doing some professional development.
Yep.
I want people that are listening to this yarn. We've got all different listeners. You might be listening on a Virgin plane. That's how deadly this podcast is. But I want people that are listening that might even have a reconciliation action plan. There are 3,000 organisations in the country that are committed to reconciliation. They've got deliverables around education, community engagement, or even procurement. investing in Indigenous businesses and communities. So this program is run out of Culture is Life, which is an Aboriginal-led not-for-profit in Naarm. Some of you fellas could have the finances to back this program in particular when it comes to supporting Black excellence, supporting Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people to connect with culture and to do leadership, but based on kind of Indigenous terms. Yep. How have you found the cultural aspect of the program?
Yeah, really informative, going down to see different mobs in other countries to see how they, go about it, respecting country and interact with each other. It's been very informative. And, the cultural immersion in the intensives is really good. We go to Aboriginal communities and, we're welcomed in and, just being able to see how that community operates and they welcome us so well. So, really grateful to be able to do that.
And they'd be all different.
Yeah, all different.
Because people seem to think that for us as First Nations or Indigenous peoples that we're all the same.
That's right.
And all the communities are all the same, but they're not all the same at all. So you've been able to go into different communities and see different, how things are run differently.
Yep.
Some of the successes or highlights in those communities by connecting with local mob. What has been one of your highlights from this program? If you could think of one, there might be two.
Yeah, well, there's a couple. I mean, obviously the main highlight for me is, being surrounded by, young, like-minded mob who want to do well for their communities. Too much we see the media sort of drag on us, say we can't do too much in the statistics. But, there's many young fellas who actually want to take on that legacy that the elders have created in terms of helping our mob. So, being around young, like-minded mob and who want to make a difference for their community.
Yeah. So, how empowering, inspiring for not just our own mob to see you fellas, take hold of these opportunities, but like you said, for non-Indigenous Australians, for people that are part of the mainstream community to actually see what we've got to offer. Absolutely. We've got so much, in terms of intelligence, deadliness, creatives, lawyers, right? We've got all these different people in our communities that are doing so many amazing things. But when do you actually hear about positive stories, especially when it comes to mainstream media?
Yep.
And since you kind of hit it on the head in terms of the work that you do in the justice and legal space and some of the heaviness when it comes to some of those cases, what do you do outside of work when you think about looking after your own mental health? What's some of the things that you do?
The main thing I do is run. So, and I've been really fortunate that there's a big group of us who actually enjoy running in the Fullaship. So most mornings we're out going for a little 30-minute run, which is really sets you up for the day. And I've found that they've been some of my favourite moments, just the little conversations you have on the run and you're on country and it's just really special.
I would love to stay in Yarran with both yous, and I'm sure there's a podcast, whole episode here that we can dive into, some of the work that you do in community, and even, what's next for you? What are you going to do after this program?
Yeah, well, I'm in my final year of studying international relations and Aboriginal studies at Uni of Adelaide. So, I'll be applying for graduate programs and hopefully Aboriginal affairs. So,
hey, you fellas that are listening to this podcast and watching, this fella is ready, right? If he's not at Black Card, you're going to graduate in another year.
Yeah.
Soon.
Yep.
And you're juggling this on the side.
On the side, yeah. So, it's been really a journey to try and juggle it, but it's, fit in pretty well. Culture is Life are a very supportive group of people, so, yeah.
So, if you are studying or working full-time, you can actually fit this program into your schedule, all right? Don't let that deter you. And what about for you, sis? You're back in the courtroom?
Yeah.
Back in community?
Yeah, it'll just pretty much be just settling back into work once I get back, and also with my running group as well, just making sure I stay grounded with them and, hoping for the best of the year.
Too deadly. Is there anyone in particular you want to give a shout out to before we wrap up?
Probably Aunty Steph. She's probably been the anchor for our whole group. She's almost been our elder in residence for all three intensives, and her presence alone is just really special. She doesn't have to say much to make an impact, and everyone really respects her, and she's just so invaluable. And I know a lot of us have really strong connections with our nans, and so being away from country, but we know that we're in protection of Aunty Steph, and she's that beautiful figure that we can go to whenever we need anything.
That safe place.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love her. We all love it, Aunty Steph. What about for you, brother?
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Aunty Steph as well. I mean, she's been amazing, teaching us sort of, informative lessons of life, just general lessons, and how she's sort of been about it, working in that sort of cultural education space as well. So, yeah, she's just a legend, cool, calm and collected. And she can be direct when she needs to. So,
that's good. That's what you need, right?
No, I love her. She's a legend.
Too deadly. I just want to say massive thank you, big love to both of you for jumping on the podcast and just sharing a bit about your stories. And I hope that for a lot of our young mob that are listening, that this actually yarn inspires them to want to chase their dreams and push themselves out of their comfort zone. But even more for a lot of the corporates and people that are looking to back Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, Black excellence, programs like this. You cannot run a program without kind of backing resources, finances, and we need more of these programs. We need more opportunities for our mob to be part of these amazing programs. So hit these fellas up. You got Thara Brown, Belinda Duarte at Culture is Life, and the whole team behind the scenes that put these programs together. Your work and dedication in this space is not unnoticed. So big love and appreciation to all of you fellas that are listening. And I'm talking about the fellas, especially the alumni that are now, you're out there doing some of the work in the community, and you've got these opportunities to also give back to the next generation that come through these programs. So on that note, thank you for coming on the podcast, and to the listeners and viewers, I know you would have enjoyed this yarn. Until next time, bye for now.
If you'd like any more info on today's guest, please visit our show notes in the episode description. A big shout out to all you Deadly Mob and allies who continue to listen, watch and support our podcast. Your feedback means the world. You can rate and review the podcast on Apple and Spotify, or even head to our socials and YouTube channel and drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you. The Black Magic Woman podcast is produced by Clint Curtis.